Hey guys, let's go Danconia. Welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup 2020 Boston Uprising preview. So, Boston Uprising, the curious case of the Boston Uprising. They have been a very up and down team, I don't think anyone can deny that. So, in the inaugural season, Boston Uprising were the standout underdogs. They finished third in the league and surprised pretty much everyone, because we all thought Boston Uprising were going to be trash. We thought they were going to be like the Florida Mayhem, and they surprised everyone. They had a completely unbeaten stage, the first team to do it, and they stunned the league in some respects. But then we move on to 2019, and a lot of people will put this down to the fact that Boston Uprising had a coach called Krusty, and he moved to the San Francisco Shock. See how good the San Francisco Shock are doing right now? Yeah. And since Krusty has left the Boston Uprising, the Boston Uprising have kind of been in no man's land. And 2019 was a very difficult year for the Boston Uprising, culminating in a 19th placed finish in the league, which is obviously very, very poor. The Boston Uprising actually had a decent first stage, finishing 8th and getting in the stage playoffs, but since then it's been nothing but downhill for the Uprising. And obviously in Stage 4 they failed to win a game at all. But what does this mean for the next season? You know, Boston Uprising have to change something if they want to get better, obviously. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done in Boston. So, this year they have kind of changed things up slightly. So, let's go through the players that they've let go of, first of all. And to be quite honest, it's quite a few. So, Calyx has left the Boston Uprising, the last remaining player that was part of the original Boston Uprising roster from the inaugural season. He is now with the Toronto Defiant. Aingod has also left the Boston Uprising. He is joined up with Washington Justice. Alamau has left the Boston Uprising. He's no longer assigned to a team. Then we have RCK. He's also left and is no longer assigned. Persia has left and he is now retired. Stella has left. And Blase has left. Blase was picked up by the Houston Outlaws, who are looking much stronger than they were last year, but that's for the Boston Uprising preview. So, there's been a big shift out of the Boston Uprising, but who have they brought in to offset this? Now, Boston Uprising have gone with a somewhat mixed roster, but it is mainly Korean-based. They have maintained some of their members from last year, but it will be interesting to see how this all fits in. So, they've got Color Hex again. We knew about Color Hex. I had my doubts about Color Hex at the start of last season. I think he was decent for Boston last season. I don't think he was stand out by any means, but I don't think anyone really from Boston was stand out. Fusions in the early days of the Boston season last season was a standout player, but it didn't really last. It was kind of a flash in the pan early on in the season for Boston, and things just, as I said just now, went downhill. They have maintained the contracts of Axiom and Fusions as well, but those are the only 3 players remaining from last year now. They have moved in some new blood to try and change around their fortunes, because basically they needed to, let's be honest. So the first player they have signed is the Korean support player from O2 Blast, Moon Bong. So he has actually got quite a reputation in Korea. He did very well with O2 Blast. In Contenders Korea. O2 Blast have a very good track record in Contenders Korea, and they did very well in the Pacific Showdown, where they did finish second only to Element Mystique. And you'll all be hearing a lot of Element Mystique players coming up in the future videos, especially when we get to the Paris Eternal. But Myungbong is a very good signing. He's a very good Zen, a very good Ana. Very good signing for the Boston Uprising, but the question is, have they got the players around him to take advantage of such a good, on paper, good player? So, next up, we have Jerry, who is a Korean DPS player. Now, Jerry is very interesting. He comes from Metaranthena. He also had time at XX Gaming as well. He's not what you would call an outstanding pick. And I said this in the transfer roundup when they actually signed Jerry. He doesn't look like an outstanding player. He's 18, which is good. He's really young. He's got good picks like the Sombra. Sombra is always good to have in the back pocket in a pro Overwatch team, because Sombra is very good in certain unique situations. He's also got a really good Widowmaker. He's a very good hit scan, and for some reason he can also play D.Va, but let's not talk about D.Va. Although, to be quite honest, the buffs on the PTR, who knows? But, again, his track record is nothing to be overwhelmed about. He came 7th in Season 2 of Korean Contenders last year with JNATHYN, and he was in trials with JNATHYN. They didn't win the trials, they came 2nd, and he did decently in Season 1 2019 Open Division and Season 2 Open Division in Korea with X6 Gaming. But there's nothing outstanding here. But one thing we have to remember is that you can say they're not outstanding, but it doesn't mean they're not good players. For example, JNATHYN came from ladder, and he ended up being the inaugural season MVP, so we can say what we like, but we don't really know until they get into the game and into the season what they're actually going to be like. But on paper, this is an okay pickup, but it's nothing outstanding. Then we move on to JNATHYN. Now, you might know JNATHYN. He's the Canadian off-tank player, and he came from the Uprising Academy, basically. What it is he signed for the Uprising Academy from Team Envy. He was a stand-in for Team Envy, and he was also playing for Eminent as well before that. And JNATHYN's very well known, and arguably could have been in Team Canada for the World Cup, but wasn't. And then when he signed for the Uprising Academy, he was then announced as a two-way player for the Boston Uprising. So JNATHYN will be the two-way player for Boston Uprising this season. We won't be seeing much of him because of the nature of two-way players, but the rules have kind of changed on two ways, but we won't see much from JNATHYN, I wouldn't have thought. He is known for his regular appearances in the top 10 of the North American ranked ladder, though. JNATHYN is a well-known name if you play a lot of really, really high-level Overwatch ranked in NA. It's a good pickup, but again, it's a backup pickup, if you see what I mean. It's definitely not your main squad here. Then we have Swimmer. Swimmer is an American support player. He comes from, again, the Uprising Academy, promoted to the Boston Uprising roster. He did very well for the Boston Uprising Academy, although they didn't do massively brilliantly in North America East last year, but he's still a really good pickup and a really good flex support is what I would call him, because he can play a very good variety of the support roster, which is very crucial these days. And he's got a really good Baptiste, and Baptiste is going to be probably very crucial in the coming weeks, months, because Baptiste is very strong, I think, even despite the nerfs on the PTR right now, which are probably, if you look at the PTR right now, that is most likely going to be the patch that the Overwatch League is playing on, I would have thought. So, that should be interesting. Again, Swimmer is only 19. Again, I think this is a really good pickup for the Boston Uprising, but is it an outstanding pickup? Again, not really. But next up will be a name you most probably have heard of if you've been around the Overwatch League, and this is Munchkin. Now, Munchkin has a storied history in Overwatch esports, going back to pre-Overwatch League times with Lunatic High and Laser Kittens. But if you know him from the Overwatch League, you will know him from Seoul Dynasty. Seoul Dynasty obviously didn't live up to the hype, let's be honest. Munchkin was part of the inaugural season roster of the Seoul Dynasty and stayed there until last year, when he was made inactive and then transferred later last year to the Boston Uprising. Munchkin is a hitscan DPS. He's well known for his Tracer, McCree, Widowmaker and Soldier 76. If we see Soldier 76 in the Overwatch League, I shall be very surprised. But he also, again, as most DPS players are, they're known for their Brigitte, but he won't be playing Brigitte. So, but he's a good pickup. And the reason I say Munchkin is a good pickup, because he's got very good experience. He is going to be one of the few players now on the Boston Uprising with Overwatch League experience. I believe you can count 4 people on the Boston Uprising now with Overwatch League experience, and that's the 3 players that played last year, Munchkin. So, I think this is a good pickup for the Boston Uprising. Is it an outstanding pickup? No. But this is kind of also a big year for Munchkin, because this will be make or break for Munchkin in some respects as well. If he doesn't do anything at the Boston Uprising, I don't expect him to be picked up in the Overwatch League anymore, because then you've had your 2 shots and you've missed it, if you see what I mean. So it's going to be a big time for Munchkin. But again, Munchkin definitely has the ability. We know him from previous times with Laser Kittens and Lunatic High. So he's definitely got the ability. It just depends whether Boston Uprising can get the best out of him. And that is a very big if, because they haven't been able to get the best out of their players for quite a while now. And the final signing is Brusen. Brusen is a Dutch off-tank player. Now, this is really interesting. This is the off-tank player I'm expecting to start for the Boston Uprising this season, probably. I hope so, anyway. Brusen is a really good signing, and the reason I say that is he played for the Dutch international team in the Overwatch World Cup at the end of last year, and the Dutch team did very well. Brusen's Sigma did look very good, and I think he's got the potential to be a really good player for the Boston Uprising, and it could be a really good season for Brusen. It depends whether Boston Uprising, again, can take advantage of the skill of their players, and that's the if. That's the if we will put on the Boston Uprising for most of their roster. I'm not saying that their players are bad, I'm saying can they get the best out of their players? That's the big thing here. So, Brusen is well known in European contenders. He's been Bazooka Puppies 1 point, Young and Beautiful, and Angry Titans in the past. He's kind of bounced around a lot. He's only 19, and he is the first Dutch player in the Overwatch League. And it's funny because I thought it would be Visility that would be the first Dutch player in the Overwatch League, the DPS player, but Visility is having a tough time of it at the moment in terms of teams, so it's Brusen who picked into the post. I really do wish Brusen all the well, because I think he has got incredible potential, especially seeing him from the Overwatch World Cup this year. So, yeah, that is the round out of their roster for this season, Boston Uprising. In terms of their backroom staff, they did bring in the new head coach, Mineral, who came in after leaving the Florida Mayhem early last year. If that's anything to go by, then yeah. Yeah, okay. And then we have Ilka, the Greek assistant coach, coming in for this year alongside the other assistant coach, who will be Azkoft, the French assistant coach. They will be joining alongside the original roster of Minnie, who was assistant player coach, and then Spackle and Mr. Bleeple, who were analysts for Boston Uprising last season. So, there has been a major overhaul at the Boston Uprising. I don't think anyone can be surprised about that, because basically Boston were trash for most of last season, and they need a new start. And is this the new start they need? Difficult to tell. Difficult to tell to start off the season. On paper, this doesn't look like a brilliant Boston Uprising team, and in my power rankings, they will probably be quite low, very near the bottom. And, you know, they've lost coaches, like they've lost Shake, whatever, and they lost Gunber to the Los Angeles Valiant. Well, Los Angeles Valiant, yeah, Gunber ain't a great loss, because Los Angeles Valiant are probably going to be, in my power rankings, probably near where Boston are, so, yeah. Boston, it's not on paper been a great off-season, but I will always have this caveat. And the thing is, I said that Boston were trash in the previews to the inaugural season, and they definitely weren't. So sometimes you will get these rosters that will surprise you, and you never know. But at the moment, things aren't looking brilliant for the Boston Uprising. So yeah, there could be more changes to come in, but who knows? They are kind of lacking in the support area right now for cover. They've only got 2 supports with Myungbong and Swimmer, so there may be some changes coming there. But Boston Uprising will kick off their season in the first week, where they will be travelling to New York to take on the Excelsior. So it's a rough start for the Boston Uprising, and then they have to go up against the Houston Outlaws in week 3 and Philadelphia Fusion in week 4. Honestly, I could see them losing their first 3 games, because the Philadelphia Fusion have improved, the Houston Outlaws have without a doubt improved, and Excelsior certainly haven't got any worse. And Excelsior are always have been one of the top teams in the league, so unless there's a big capitulation for the Excelsior, I think they will be there and thereabouts this season. So, yeah, it's looking bleak for Boston, but, you know, they have the players. It's just whether they can take advantage of those players, and it's whether they can keep everyone happy, because we know that at certain times last season, a lot of the players got very frustrated with how things were going, and sometimes you've just got to keep that mental stability. And Fusions is going to be key to this, because he's going to be a leader figure in that team with his big callouts and all that. So it'll be interesting to see where the Boston Uprising go, but it's definitely going to be a if they get any higher than where they were last season, it's going to be a good season for Boston Uprising. And yeah, that's all I can say. But I'm going to leave it here for this one. The next one up will be Chengdu Hunters. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then.